So one of my things that I don't like about this van is the fact that you can see up here, all I got is a fan. I don't have an AC system in the actual van. So what I did, I actually bought a mini split. So this is the part that's gonna go in the back of the van, the cover, and that is the interior part. Well, it's upside down right now. I have this ladder rack right here for the tire, and I'm gonna mount it right there. I bought these, well, this, and I just cut it with that, and I got that at Lowe's early this morning around 6 a.m. And then I got some stuff right here. All right, we got our first bar on there, 2 bolts. Up here we had 4 brackets that I had to go ahead and put some black duct tape on. That way I could go ahead and get more of a clamp, but I still go ahead and tighten them down after the unit is actually on there. All right, there we have it. We got the bracket at the top and the bottom. We have 4 bolts going through, 2 washers, 1 washer after the bolt head, and then 1 after the metal square bar. And we got a locking nut at the top, and we have 2 regular nuts at the bottom. The cardboard box that I have that they supplied, and these are all the hardware pretty much that they supplied. I didn't use these rivet nuts because I didn't have the tool. I tried it with a bolt and a couple washers to go ahead and shrink it behind this tubing, because that was my original plan for these bolts, but it is what it is. Didn't work, it failed, it snapped. And there we go, we have it level. You guys can see right there, it is level, it's mounted. I had to take it off the brackets a couple times just to go ahead and get them where they needed to be. And I moved the bolts more in, 1 slot over on the right side, but you can see it is mounted. So you can see this is the power cord. I'm gonna actually be putting a hole right here. That way I can go ahead and feed these power cords into the van behind there. That is what I have to work with. So I'm gonna be taking that off, and I'm gonna be putting the split interior part up there. So this is the split unit that goes inside. It's gonna fit perfectly right there. All right, we have a 2 1/4 hole saw. This is the grommet. All right, we got the lines hooked up onto the door, and the grommet is fed. I actually put the positive and negative wire through the grommet because there's no other way to go ahead and power this unit unless you put a battery on the back of the rack. We got this fitting already hooked up. There is a metal type screen that you have to put in there, so do not forget that. Also got to go ahead and oil the O-ring. I did that here also, and on this one. So now I'm just going to go ahead and feed this in, but just an FYI, you got to go ahead and take this out. I use needle nose pliers. Do not throw this 1 bolt away, which goes right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and insert that real quick. Now that that bolt is nice and tight with a 10mm, we're gonna go ahead and lock this in place. Go. There's the hole. All right, feed in the wires and the hoses through. I put some Gorilla Tape right here. I loaded it up so it wasn't sharp here. I also filed down the hole, and I put a ring of, added a little primer to it. That way it doesn't rust. So I'm just gonna go ahead and feed those back through all the way and unkink these wires. All right guys, this is the second day. Unit is up there, but the DAP sealant that I use, interior siding, this is the DAP trim molding caulking that I used. I'm really not a fan of it because it has about 10-15 hours and it's still damp to the touch. So you can see, back into Lowe's. All right, so I have to pick out a piece of plywood because the one that they supplied me with is really thin, just like this one. Thickness, this is a good thickness right here. $19. I'm looking at sealant right now, and I think I'm gonna go with this because I removed that DAP. All right, I grabbed a 2 foot by 2 foot thicker than the original plywood that I got. Well, I removed this off of the door because it wasn't curing as well as I was expecting. So do not use this. Finally cleaned out the back of my van, but now I got to go ahead and cut that new piece of wood and put it up there. And yes, I'm using my handy dandy cutoff wheel from Chicago Electric. All right, there we go. Cut it with that cutoff wheel, like I said, and there we go. All right, so I also picked some of these up, 1.5 inch brackets. Got 4 of them, along with the hardware, the screws. So now to go ahead and mount it. Before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and take my interior paint and primer and go ahead and paint that. For those of you actually staying tuned in, I really appreciate it. Consider subscribing and stay tuned. Hit the bell notification right next to subscribe after you hit it, and leave a comment. We got our first coat on one side, but gonna go ahead and do another coat and then wait till that dries and flip it over. All right, now we got that up, held up with those 4 L brackets. We're gonna go ahead and mount that. All right, we got it mounted up, you guys. I did close the door to level it because when you do open it, it tends to not be level. So definitely do it when the door is shut. But yeah, even if it wasn't level, it's still good because the fact that when the door is open, or say if it wasn't level, it's gonna drain out of one of these 2 ports. So that one or that one. They do come with caps, but I'm gonna be teeing it. That way it goes out this hole and right back down and then out. All right, the unit is now hooked up. There is that S plate right there in the middle of the screen that you gotta go ahead and reuse. It's actually on there, so when you go ahead and take that cover off, it is gonna purge out at you. It's gonna make a loud noise, like a whistle sound. And make sure you go ahead and lube the O-rings here, and on the unit itself. Use this purge valve, put that on, and then 2 Allen bolts that are the same size will go through and connect to this. And then you got this plate that you put on with this Allen bolt after you go ahead and put the big and small line on. I just used motor oil that I took off my dipstick. Well, there you have it, you guys. The only thing I got to go ahead and do is put a rim around that hole saw area where the metal is and put this back on, but everything is hooked up minus that power cable. So everything is ran. That thing I got to go ahead and paint, but I'm not really in a rush. I'd rather get this all figured out. Put the drain tubes on, which I probably can do right now. Hook up the power and suck out the moisture and seal that hole up. And there we go, you guys. Pretty much, well, I'm pretty excited to say, you guys, I fixed that grommet and I'm no longer using that DAP, obviously, and I used the silicone. Check it out. All right, so I went to O'Reilly's and I bought this hose, and you can see how it's shaped as a C. I actually cut it down the middle, and then I went around the rim of that 2 1/4. So I just finished reading the directions on this JB Weld. You guys can see sets in 6 minutes, cures in 4 to 6 hours, as long as the temperature isn't below 40 degrees. So I'll give that a little while till I get out of work tonight, and I'll go ahead and put some sealant. My buddy Stan, a fellow traveler here at the hospital I work at, actually held the 2 hoses and the wiring on the other side. That way I could go ahead and put this silicone sealant in between the door and the grommet. It actually sealed pretty well and it's not pushing in anymore, but now I gotta go ahead and fill the hole. So just to give some insight on what I'm doing, as I go ahead and squeeze the tube in, I'm actually moving the wiring around and the hoses. You can see I haven't sealed there yet, but I'm gonna shove it into that little crease all around the edges of each tubing and this covering sheath. So just as I go, I move it around, shove it into the holes. As I squeeze the tube, I just move it around, agitate it, and this sealant, silicone, is really
Nice, I like this stuff. I'm glad I got this, and I think this one tube is gonna seal it from the front and the back.
All right, there we have it, all sealed up. I actually went around the grommet one more time because it already cured. Now I just gotta have to wait for this stuff to cure. And it's good to move stuff around to make sure you have enough. I might have to add a little bit more over there. But other than that, sealed up. Don't get me wrong, when that is sealed, I'm probably gonna go ahead and put another layer over it just to make sure it's... So my next step is to hook up the positive and negative to the solar batteries. My 2 solar batteries are under here. Inside my van, I have a Simmering Pico monitoring system along with this SCQ50. So we have power going in and then we have power going out. I have a 50 amp max along with a 35 volt max. What I'm gonna do is hook up the negative here and then the positive down here. But make sure you go ahead and turn your solar battery switch off. That's a kill switch. So the power from the batteries is not going to any of this electrical stuff right here. All right, I officially have the positive and negative hooked up. I have the wire going over here and I mounted it to the wall. Now I just gotta figure something out for all the slack. All right, after watching a video, I realized that the drain tubes and the level of the unit has to be perfect. You guys can see I'm leaning a little down, so I might need to go ahead and modify what I just did, because I put those black grommets that they came with for the outside on the bottom. That way it could level the system more straighter, because on this I'm level. Right here I'm level, but going this way I'm not. But the good thing, I got power. All right, today's the day, you guys. We're gonna go ahead and fill the AC unit with refrigerant, so stay tuned. But now that we have power, we're gonna go ahead and vacuum out the actual unit itself. So we're gonna go ahead and hook up the manifold. So I got this at Harbor Freight for about $60. This is what the manifold kit looks like. You got the instructions, you got the manifold, you got the hoses, and you have these. Now I'm gonna show you guys how to hook it up. So we got a low, says L right there on this cap, and we got an H for high. So all you do is pull back and put on. There you go. Got the low. Just give a tug real quick, nothing crazy. That way you know it's tight and on there, secure. That's where I hung my manifold. All right, the Harbor Freight AC manifold is now hooked up. I want to point out a couple things. These angled fit-ins that go onto the manifold have to be here. When you go ahead and hook up the low, you'll realize this fit-in right here is loose, so go ahead and take a 16mm open wrench and just snug it up. There's an O-ring in between there, so do it on this side also, and you should be good. Just make sure all your valves are nice and tight, closed. And to the next step. Well, apparently this manifold and the vacuum line doesn't hook up to those 3 fit-ins on the JB Platinum. So I'm stuck having to go to Harbor Freight and purchase one of their vacuums. All right, there it is. Paid $108, that's with tax. This is the 2.5 CFM vacuum pump. So I got the pump, I got the yellow line attached to it, to the manifold, and then the blue and the red lines are hooked up. Now we're just gonna go ahead and open these, all 4 of them. And now we can go ahead and turn on the pump for 25 minutes. We're sitting at 30 vacuum right now. And then on the high side, it's below 0. So
I'm assuming that's pull vacuum here, but we're mainly concerned right here. So that means I have no leaks right now. All right, it's been 28 minutes so far, you guys. We're gonna go ahead and shut the lines nice and tight. And shut it off. And we're done. I want to explain my process, you guys. Before I turn the vacuum off, I close that valve, and then these two valves on the manifold, and I made sure my 30 psi didn't move back up to 0, because the first time I did it, I don't know what happened, but it rose back up to 0. Now everything is shut nice and tight, and it's not leaking. I even went around and I tried to make sure I didn't hear any hissing, but everything seems good to go. So for this unit, you're gonna need 600 grams. This is 340 grams per bottle. And then you're gonna also need one of these self-sealing AC refrigerant can taps. Before you join these two together, just make sure this is fully open. Make sure this little puncture tool in the middle is all the way down towards the O-ring, and then screw it on. Because if you don't, it's gonna puncture, and you don't want that right now. You want to be able to hook this up to the yellow line before you do anything. Make sure it's on there nice and tight. Let's go ahead and hook it up to the yellow. All right, everything is tight on the bottle. Make sure this is nice and snug also. You don't want any leaks. All right, before we go ahead and break the seal on this, just double check to make sure it's at 30. And we're gonna go ahead and screw that all the way in. Okay, give it a nice shake. Now it's gonna go ahead and purge the line. Make sure you're wearing glasses. Now that the seal is broken on the R134A, we're gonna go ahead and open this side. And you can see, you just gotta keep moving this around, okay? Up, down, back and forth. It's gonna take this whole can, but do not turn the unit on when you're doing it. So I got the first bottle on there, and I turned on the unit at 20 Celsius, and I can really feel the cold air coming. And we're sitting about 54 PSI, and this can is almost done. Just want to go ahead and make sure you shake it. You can see there's no more refrigerant in there, so I'm assuming that it took all of it. But we're gonna just let that sit for another second. This is cold, by the way. So I got this at AutoZone, and this has 340 grams, just an FYI. You can definitely tell that's empty. So we're at 30 PSI. I'm gonna go ahead and slowly add that to here. Now I opened it, but I didn't open it all the way on the low side. So I'm just gonna sit here and watch it fluctuate. As long as it doesn't reach that 60, I'll be good. So around 55, and then it's gonna drop. You can see that it's dropping right now under 50, but it is accepting it. Shake it, move it upside down. You want the liquid and whatever, there's two additives in this can that makes the refrigerant. So you just want to make sure you're doing it properly. See, now it's under 40. We're gonna go ahead and open this up a little bit more. So I'm probably gonna be sitting around 42. I'll be happy with 42. Because I'm supposed to be around 35 to 45. And this can is getting cold, you guys. that sit upside down so it all can flow.
I'm gonna also leave something right there. That way you can see what the R134A temperature and low and high side pressures are.
I just turned the unit on, and what I'm gonna do is put it down to 20 Celsius.
You guys, this stuff is already frosty. So I'm trying to reach between 35 and 45 PSI on the low. And then 150 to 175 on the high. You guys, this is amazing. I'm gonna love it. All right, it's been on for about a minute and I'm sitting at 34 PSI. It's slowly dropping, but that's good. That means it's circulating. So I'm trying to give you guys as much information as I possibly can. That way you guys can do this successfully, because there's not that many videos on how to go ahead and charge the system. So if you could like this video, I really appreciate it. Consider subscribing and stay notified. Hit that little bell button next to the subscribe.
So we're gonna go ahead and turn up the speed a little bit. We're on 4L. Oh, I can feel that. That is amazing. So we're sitting at 30 PSI. That's fully open. This can, it's almost empty. PSI. This thing's almost done.
You guys, I did it. Oh my God, this is so amazing. I cannot even describe to you guys how happy I am, other than showing you guys with expression. But yo, consider subscribing, like the video content. There's a bunch of them. There's like 13, 15 videos.
All right guys, this is empty. It took 340 grams times 2, so that's 680 grams. Even though this system asked for 600, it's sitting at 30 PSI and it's about 75 degrees out right now.